The rancher crossed into Apache territory just after first light, when the desert still held the night's cold and every sound carried farther than it should. His horse slowed without being asked. Animals understood borders better than men. He had been warned back in town. Not by threat, but by omission. Conversation stopped when he mentioned the route. A trader finally said, "Low and careful, there's only one rule out there." The rancher asked what it was. The trader shook his head. "Everyone knows it." Now, riding between Mesquite and Red Stone, the rancher felt that rule pressing in on him. The land was not hostile. It was watchful. Tracks appeared, then vanished. Smoke scars lay old and deliberate, not abandoned. This was not lawless ground. It was governed. And somewhere ahead, something had already been broken. He found the camp just past a dry arroyo where the earth dipped and rose again like a scar that never healed. The fire pit was still warm. Not abandoned, emptied. Someone had moved through with purpose. Blankets lay slashed, not scattered. A water skin had been cut and left to drain, as if wasting it was part of the message. There were no bodies. That, more than anything, told him this had been done by men who planned to return. The horse shied when he saw the tracks. Too many boots. Too straight a line. Wagon ruts pressed deep, heavy with weight that hadn't been there on the way in. Then he saw the child. She had been hidden beneath a juniper branch, covered with dust and brush, her small chest rising in shallow, stubborn breaths. Blood had dried along her temple, and one sleeve of her dress was torn clean away. She could not have been more than 8. The rancher dismounted slowly. He did not kneel at first. He had learned long ago that panic helped no one. He set his rifle against a stone and raised his hands, as if the land itself were watching. "Easy," he said, though he did not know who he was speaking to. When he finally knelt, he saw that someone had tried to tend her. A rough bandage, made from a man's shirt. A woman's work, careful and deliberate. Whoever had done it had stayed as long as they could, and then been forced to leave. The girl's eyes opened once. Dark. Unafraid. She looked past him, not at him, as if she already knew who would come next. A sound moved through the trees behind him. Not a step. Not a breath. A presence. The rancher did not turn. "You crossed far," a voice said. Old. Steady. English shaped by years of restraint. "I was looking for a boy," the rancher replied. "I found this instead." Silence stretched. Then another voice, closer now. "This is not the first." The rancher felt the weight of that settle in his chest. "Who did it?" The answer came after a long moment. "Men who believe distance protects them. Men who believe Apache law ended when the soldiers left." The old man stepped into view at last. His hair was gray, bound low. His eyes never left the child. "She is protected," he said. "They took her anyway." The rancher understood then. This was not a mistake. This was a choice. And choices, in this land, were answered. The old man looked at him. "You may leave now." The rancher shook his head once. "Not yet." The old man studied him for a long time. Then he said, quietly, "Then you will see what follows." They moved after nightfall, when the heat bled back into the earth and the desert softened its edges. The girl was carried on a travois of poles and rawhide, her breathing steadier now, her body guarded by 2 women who never looked back. No one told the rancher to follow. He did so because stopping no longer felt possible. They took no straight path. They crossed ground that left no sign, waded dry washes, doubled back through stands of cedar where the scent lingered longer than tracks ever could. The rancher realized this was not concealment. It was ceremony. The land was being reminded of itself. Near midnight, they halted beneath a rise of stone worn smooth by time. A small fire was built, smokeless and low. An elder spoke then, not to the rancher, but to the night. The rule was broken, he said. Not once. A younger man answered from the dark. 3 wagons. 2 towns. Same buyers. The word struck harder than gunfire. This was no raid. No single cruelty. It was a chain. The rancher listened as names were spoken without anger. A sheriff who collected fees. A trader who sold cloth by day and children by night. A ranch owner who paid for silence with beef and credit. A system, old and well-fed. Only then did the warnings return to him. The half-finished sentences. The way men in town avoided his eyes. They had known. They had counted on distance and indifference to keep them safe. Someone finally asked the question the rancher had been carrying since dawn. Do they know whose land this is? An answer came, not from the firelight, but from the ridge above them. They will. The voice was calm. Unforced. No threat in it. Yet every man there straightened, not in fear, but in acknowledgement. The rancher did not see the speaker clearly. Only the outline of a figure standing where stone met sky, as if the land itself had chosen a shape. No orders were given. None were needed. The girl slept through it all, wrapped in blankets that smelled of sage and smoke. She would wake in a different world. The rancher understood then that what was coming would not be loud. It would not be remembered for blood. It would be remembered because something that had been allowed to exist was about to be removed. And once removed, it would not return. The town still slept when they arrived. No hooves struck stone. No dogs barked. Doors were not kicked in. They opened as if they had been expecting hands on the latch all along. The first fire was set beneath a wagon stacked with crates stamped for flour and seed. It burned clean and low, fed by oil soaked into the wood days earlier. When the flames reached the false floor, the smoke changed. Bitter. Telling. Men woke coughing. Some ran barefoot into the street, shirts half-buttoned, eyes wide with the shock of consequence arriving without warning. There were no shouts. Only brief commands spoken in Apache, answered at once. A trader tried to flee through an alley and found it already occupied. He fell without ceremony, struck once, precisely, as if the moment had been measured long before it arrived. The sheriff was taken last. He reached for his pistol and found it gone. His books were carried from his office and laid open beneath the rising light. Names. Dates. Prices written in his own careful hand. The town gathered, drawn by the weight of what they were seeing. The sheriff knelt. He was not struck. Say it, a voice told him. Not loud. Unavoidable. I knew, he said. His shoulders sagged with the relief of confession. I knew. That was enough. The wagons burned until nothing remained that could be used again. Locks were broken. Chains were cut and left twisted in the dust. By the time the sun cleared the ridge, it was over. No one cheered. No one pursued the Apache as they withdrew, because there was nothing left to pursue. The system that had fed itself in quiet corners was gone. Not wounded. Not warned. Ended. The rancher stood at the edge of the street, untouched, unseen. He realized then that he had never been part of the reckoning. He had only been allowed to witness it. They left before the town fully woke. The smoke thinned as the sun climbed, revealing streets that looked unchanged to an untrained eye. Buildings still stood. Signs still swung in the morning breeze. But something essential had been removed, like rot cut from a beam that would now hold. They traveled north, back toward the land that watched without speaking. The girl rode wrapped in clean blankets, her head resting against one of the women's shoulders. She slept deeply, the way only the very young can after the world has been put back in order. At the edge of the territory, the old man walked beside the rancher's horse for a time. Neither hurried. "You may go farther no more," the old man said at last. The rancher nodded. He had known the boundary long before it was spoken. "What will happen to the town?" he asked. The old man looked back once, toward where the smoke had been. "It will remember," he said. "Or it will empty." The rancher thought of the missing boy. Of the men who had believed distance and paper law would protect them. Of how quietly that belief had been corrected. He did not ask about the figure on the ridge. Some names were not given to outsiders. When he turned his horse west, the land felt lighter. Not safe. Honest. Years later, travelers would say the roads there grew quieter. That wagons passed through without fear. That certain trades never returned, though no one could quite explain why. Those who knew did not speak of it. They only said there was one rule. And that it still applied.